If you're planning a trip to Chicago, stick around for this episode. Here's a 30-second teaser.
This isn't like necessarily a local gem, but I think one that a lot of people just miss is the Cultural Center. And inside, they have the world's largest Tiffany stained glass dome. And then we have Lake Michigan, which is like right here. I think people don't realize that we literally have a beach like right in front of the city. People are nice in Chicago. Like, we're known for Midwestern hospitality. So, like, people are going to be snooty and mean.
Welcome, everybody, to the Travel Lemming Podcast. My name is Betty Hurd. I'm your host. This is the podcast where we help you become a better traveler by giving you tips and tricks about destinations all around the world. My guest today is a Chicago local and plays a huge role at Travel Lemming. Welcome to the show, Lea Rose Alba. I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about why you're our Chicago expert.
Hi, I'm Lea Rose, and like Betty said, I'm Travel Lemming's managing editor and a Chicago local. So I've lived in Chicago since 2022, and I just really love the city, and I love exploring all the best things to do in the neighborhoods, and I've got tons of recommendations for visitors coming to Chicago for the first time. So yeah, I'm excited to share all of that today and let you know what to experience in the Windy City.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about your Chicago expertise. I've only been there really one time in my life, and I absolutely loved it. So I know it's going to be a great episode since you're our expert. Lea Rose and I recorded an episode on Italy a few episodes back. So if that's a place that you've been planning on traveling as well, make sure to check that episode out after this one. So before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you can follow along with every new episode we post on Thursdays. So my first question is always a simple one. Lea Rose, why should somebody visit Chicago?
So I feel like there's a million ways I could answer that question. I would just say overall, if you're looking to plan some type of city trip and maybe you're thinking about like New York City or LA, but maybe those places seem like too expensive or you just, want a little bit something different, I think plan a trip to Chicago. I think a lot of people are pleasantly surprised when they come to Chicago because I think a lot of people just have a certain idea about what Chicago is. And the city definitely has a certain reputation, but I think anyone who visits will be pleasantly surprised and realize that we have a lot more than people expect. Like, we have an amazing food scene, arts and culture, like amazing museums. The sports are really big here. I'm not a big sports person, but I mean, we've got like the Bears for football, the Bulls basketball, and then the Cubs and the White Sox for baseball. So there's a big sports scene here. And then we also just have amazing architecture locally, just like walking through random neighborhoods. There's like really beautiful houses to look at. And then we also have Lake Michigan, which is like right here. And I think people don't realize that we literally have a beach like right in front of the city. And I know it's not like a beach by traditional standards, but if you ask any local, it's a beach. And yeah, there's just a ton to do for, I would say, like lots of different types of travelers. I also think in general, Chicago is just one of the best cities in the US. And I get a lot of flack for saying this, I think, especially when people are like, oh, but New York City and LA and Miami. And that's true. And those places are great. But just visit Chicago and you'll know what I mean. It's just, we've got a lot going on here. And no offense to those places, but I feel like we have less of the fanfare. It's more of like a down to earth type of city. There are real people who are living here. Like, it's really authentic. Again, no offense to New York City or LA. No shade to you, Betty. You live in LA.
I'm
But
so offended.
yeah, that's my take on Chicago.
No, it is super different. I've been to all three cities. In fact, I feel like LA, Chicago, and New York are kind of like the three main major cities in the United
Yeah.
States. Maybe Miami. I don't know.
No, you're right. Because I think New York City's the biggest, and then LA, and then Chicago's the third. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you got the West Coast, which is super, super different from the East Coast, and then Chicago right in the middle just has, like you said, it's a very laid back feeling. It's really gorgeous there.
Yeah.
And yeah, no offense taken at all. But also, I know you have an article on the website about why you think Chicago's the best city in the US.
Mm.
So we'll definitely link that in the show notes. So definitely check out Lea Rose's article there after this episode if you want to get into her reasoning there a little bit more.
Little
Um,
controversial, but you can give it a read.
so controversial. Yeah, so I want to just go ahead and get started with the best things to do since you already mentioned a couple of those major attractions and draws to the city. So, what are some of the best things to do in Chicago?
I would say as far as attractions go, obviously, like, the Bean is up there. Everybody knows the Bean. It's in Millennium Park. It's this giant, like, sculpture that most people think looks like a bean. It's actually supposed to look like a cloud, and it's supposed to
Really?
yeah, it's called Cloud Gate is what it's actually
No
called.
way. Oh my God,
Uh,
it's not just the bean?
it's not just the bean. Yeah, so it's called Cloud Gate, and it has, like, a reflective surface, and it's supposed to, like, reflect the skyline, and it's cool. Like, obviously, it's touristy, but, the bean. But, yeah, obviously, that's worth visiting, and then we've got tons of really cool museums, like, the Art Institute is huge. That's, like, right down the street from the bean. It's in the same park, but it's just like basically a couple blocks down. Amazing art, like exhibits from different eras in art history. And it's got American art, Impressionism, an Egyptian exhibit, tons of different stuff. And then there's Navy Pier, which is really big for families. And then there's just a ton of other places. Lincoln Park is the biggest park in the city, and we have a free zoo you can visit, which is right on the park. There's beaches all along the city. And then like comedy is another thing that's huge in Chicago. So a lot of people may have heard of the Second City, which is a famous comedy club. A lot of famous comedians and actors have come out of Second City. And so there's a big comedy scene here. And so seeing a show is a really fun thing to do. And there's also, lots of live music. Blues and jazz are really big in Chicago. So there's kind of something for everybody. And also, sports and everything, like going to see a Cubs game is a classic Chicago thing. So those are kind of like the top attractions. And then as far as just like more local type things to do, honestly, one of my favorite things to do in Chicago is just walking around different neighborhoods and with my dog and looking at the different buildings because Chicago has really, really cool architecture. And I think even if you're not like a big architecture enthusiast, I think you can still appreciate all of the cool buildings we have. After like the Great Chicago Fire, a long, long time ago, there was like a big rebuilding in the city. And so there's just a lot of really beautiful buildings. And the city attracted a lot of architects at the time. So I would say downtown in the Loop, there's really cool architecture as far as like big buildings and skyscrapers. And then also just like neighborhoods and homes, just really cool buildings.
Yeah, a lot of character in them. I think that's one of the really unique things about Chicago. And when you get more west, really there isn't very interesting architecture on the West Coast, except for San Francisco, which we just did an episode on San Francisco. You should also check that out after this with Laura McFarlane. She also talks a lot about the architecture, how it's very European. And I think that's like one of the really unique things there because you really don't see anything like these beautiful streets in Chicago at all on the West Coast, really. Yeah, I think it's such a gorgeous city. And like you said, after everything was rebuilt after the Chicago fire, which didn't
Yeah.
that burn down
It
like a
burnt down like
massive percentage of the
most
city?
of the city. I mean, you can fact check me here, but it was most of the city, especially downtown Chicago, is pretty much leveled except for a few buildings, the water tower, that's still standing, and some other buildings. But it was like, I think because everything was made of wood and nothing was made of steel at the
Right.
time. I've done an architecture cruise a couple of times, so I'm like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
I've heard this.
Yeah.
Burn it. Yeah, a lot of the city was just like leveled. So after that, basically there was like an architectural boom and people were like, oh, well, the city got flattened. So, like, this is an opportunity for, like, architects to come and rebuild a bunch of stuff. And
Yeah.
so there's just, like,
That's
a lot of
cool.
character for sure. Like,
Yeah, well, they did a good job.
yeah, I think so too. I love just, like, walking around. And there's tons of neighborhoods I could go into that are, like, hot spots for it. But yeah.
Yeah, of course. Are there any hidden gems that maybe somebody who isn't a local would want to know about when visiting Chicago?
Ooh, definitely. Off the top of my head, this isn't like necessarily a local gem, but I think one that a lot of people just miss when they're downtown in the Loop. So, right across the street from the Bean and Millennium Park is the Cultural Center. And inside, they have the world's largest Tiffany stained glass dome. And it's really cool. The building is absolutely beautiful. They have a cool gift shop too. Pro tip, if you need to use the bathroom while you're in the Loop, you can use it for free in the Cultural Center. But I would say that's one that people just like kind of skip over. Another hidden gem in downtown Chicago is the Poetry Foundation. And it's again just kind of like a hidden building. Like you don't really realize it's there, but it's totally free to visit. And they've got shelves floor to ceiling of all of these poetry books. And it's just kind of a cool place to walk around, wander. It's really peaceful. They have a little courtyard. So those are just like a couple of random ones off the top of my head. And then I would also say just going and visiting the beaches while you're in Chicago is a must. I kind of think people forget that that's a thing that you should do and you get caught up just doing city stuff.
Yeah. Do you have any top beaches that you recommend?
Yeah, so the ones that I usually like to go to are the North Ave Beach and Montrose Beach. Montrose is a little bit farther north and tends to be a little bit cleaner than North Ave, but North Ave Beach is right next to Lincoln Park, so it's pretty accessible to a lot of people. And there's like kind of a concrete pier that you can walk out onto, and there's like really beautiful views of the city. You can get like a perfect skyline shot. So I would say those two are some of my recommendations.
Lovely. And you mentioned the Loop before. Can you tell us a little bit more about what exactly the Loop is?
Yeah, so basically the Loop refers to downtown Chicago, and it's named that because all of the like the train systems, like all of them meet in downtown Chicago forming like a loop with the train lines. So that's like why it's called the Loop. But when you hear people say the Loop, they're just talking about downtown Chicago. And there's
To
some other like downtown neighborhoods that, will get really like specific, like, okay, that's not the Loop. This is like River North and yeah, but you can just think of it kind of as downtown Chicago.
Okay. Well, on that topic, where are some of the best places to stay in Chicago?
I would say the Loop is probably the most popular place to stay for first time visitors and just like the areas surrounding the Loop, again, downtown Chicago. So I'd say the Loop, River North, Streeterville, and staying along the Magnificent Mile. That's like the famous shopping district. Just staying in that general area is best for first timers because you're going to get like the city experience. There's tons of cool hotels. You're going to get the city views and you're going to be closest to all of your attractions and everything. And then I would say if you're coming back for like a repeat visit or you want to experience a little something different or just something a little more local, there's a bajillion neighborhoods to choose from, but some of the more popular ones are like Wicker Park is really cool, especially with younger travelers. I used to live in Wicker Park, and there's just a ton of like music venues and coffee shops and like cool vintage shops and stuff like that. And then like West Loop is really big for people who love like restaurants and food and all that kind of thing. And Lincoln Park is really big for families. So those are just, some off the top of my head. But yeah, there's definitely something for everyone and a million neighborhoods to choose from.
Where should budget travelers stay in Chicago?
So we have some like chain hotels in downtown Chicago, and I would say try to go for, some more national popular chains. And you're probably going to get some cheaper rates. Chicago also has a couple of hostels, and so that's a good way to, get a cheaper rate. And then I would say like as far as neighborhoods go, you could probably find cheaper like Airbnbs and rentals up in like Lakeview, maybe around the Wicker Park area, but Wicker Park can actually be kind of expensive. But I would say kind of spreading out into the neighborhoods, you could find some cheaper rentals.
Okay, great. Yeah, one of my best friends actually stayed in a hostel in Chicago just this last year, and he said it was amazing. He said it was really clean, super like it was very much like European hostels where they had bar
Yeah.
crawls, pub crawls planned,
Cool.
and it was like $40 a night. So
Oh,
if you're on a
that's
budget, you
great.
definitely can do that. Yeah,
For
yeah.
sure.
Which I know, I feel like a lot of major cities don't have, in the US at least, don't have very many hostel options. So
Yeah.
that's
I
great.
I know off the top of my head there's High Chicago Hostel. That's the name of one. Maybe it was that one, but there's a couple others, but I know that one off the top of my
Yeah.
head.
Well, very cool. Are there any other notable places you recommend staying in Chicago?
There are a ton of cool hotels to stay in Chicago. I would say one that's right on the river is London House Chicago. Like I said, it sits right on the river, and if you get a room like facing the river, you'll get beautiful views of the city all around. And another one is the Chicago Athletic Association, which is more of a boutique hotel, but it's right across the street from the Bean. And they also have a really cool rooftop bar that overlooks the entire park, and you can see Lake Michigan in the background as well as just city views. So those are a couple of cool hotels that I would say to check out. There's a ton more in my Where to Stay in Chicago guide if you're looking for, different options. If you're like a budget traveler, like want something luxury, all of that. So I would say that's a good resource. But yeah, tons of cool places.
Awesome. So now that we know where to stay, I want to talk about when to stay. So when should somebody visit Chicago?
I'll say this with my chest, but summer is the best time to visit Chicago. It's just like the best time in the city. Any other local would agree with me. I feel like people say that the winters or the summers make the winters worth suffering through basically in Chicago because our summers are elite. Basically, yeah, like it's really hot, but again, we have Lake Michigan and everybody's just like at the beach. Patio dining is huge. Everyone's just outside. There's a buzz and an energy, I think, during the summer in Chicago. And like I said, it is hot, but if you can visit during the summer, absolutely come. You'll, I think, get to see Chicago at its very best with the skies are blue. They aren't gray and sad and depressing like they are in the winter. Everything's green in the parks, so you can enjoy the parks and swimming in the lake. You can take a boat out onto Lake Michigan. You can kayak down the Chicago River. There's also a ton of festivals and events going on in the summertime. So there's something happening every single weekend. So it's just a great way to experience like the very best of the city. Chicago summers have a certain energy to them. So visit then if you can. Spring, honestly, hit or miss. Spring in Chicago is super up and down. Like it'll be 75 degrees one day and then 45 degrees the next. It just kind of it's inconsistent. It's an okay time to visit, but like inconsistent weather. Fall is a nice time to visit if you want to visit when things are a little more budget friendly or and you want fewer crowds and don't want to deal with the heat. Like September is awesome. October isn't too cold yet, so I would say those are a couple of cool months to check out. Winter, it's winter in Chicago. It's sad and cold and depressing sometimes, but I mean, we have cool things going on during the holidays, so you won't totally suffer. You'll also get cheaper prices and can probably enjoy the museums like without anybody. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would say about the different seasons.
I've heard that the winters are quite brutal. I don't think I've ever been there during the winter. Like, I don't think I've had a layover there. For those who don't know, I'm a flight attendant, so, like, I'm always at the Chicago airport, but I rarely actually get to stay there. But, yeah, I don't think I've been outside during that cold. I don't know what that feels like, but people are always like, "Stay out of Chicago in the wintertime. It's so
Yeah,
tough to get
it's
through."
brutal. When I first moved to Chicago, it was like January, and I stepped out of the car, and just for a split second, I was like, maybe I regret this. But I survived, so we're
Yeah,
doing
take some
okay.
getting used to. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think I have my like Chicago cold grit. Like it takes time to get used to.
The one time I've been to Chicago was in the summertime, and I just remember the weather was perfect, the skies were clear, there were
Yeah.
tulips blooming everywhere.
Yeah.
It was so gorgeous, it was like this utopian society, and I remember telling some friends of mine who lived there, like, "Oh my god, I wanna move to Chicago, like, maybe I could work here," and they're like, "Don't you dare think that this is normal because,
Yeah.
like, you don't know what the winters are like," and for me being from Arizona, I've never experienced cold like that, so I was like, "Oh, I'm sure it's fine." And, the more I hear about it, the more I'm like, "I don't know how well I would handle that." But,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
the
rough.
summers are gorgeous.
I
Yeah.
know. I always feel like when I go through winter and then winter like at the end and it's about to become spring and summer and then we have our first like warm sunny day, I'm like, "Oh, I forgot what it was like to feel alive." But yeah, visit in the summer.
Awesome. How much time do you think somebody would need to visit?
I would say a long weekend is solid. That way you can do all the highlights and then also like check out a couple of neighborhoods and, do some more local type stuff. And then if you really want to kind of dive into the city, if you could take a week, that'll give you like plenty of time to explore different neighborhoods and, chill out a little while you explore all the different parts of the city. But I think if you could do a long weekend, that's solid.
Speaking of exploring, I wanna talk about the best ways to get around Chicago. I know you guys have a killer train system, which is something it's completely foreign to me, so if you could talk a little bit more about the best ways to get around Chicago, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we do have a pretty big like public transportation system. It's comprised of, trains and buses. Something people should know is that, the trains are often referred to as like the L, which is a shortened version for elevated because our trains are mostly elevated in the city. They're not like underground, except for in a few spots. But yeah, so if you hear the L, that's referring to the train. A lot of people do call it the train though, so you won't be crazy for calling it that. We have like pretty good access as far as like you can get all around the city with public transportation. You don't need a car, especially if you're visiting. Like it would be more hassle than it's worth. And yeah, we've got, I think it's about 8 different lines. They're like color coded and all of them meet up in the city center, like in downtown. So whatever line you're closest to, you can get back to the loop by taking the train. And then, yeah, and I mean, it's pretty reliable. I would say buses, they're generally reliable, but I kind of think in the winter, they tend to be like, there'll be some missing buses, but that's just anecdotally. But yeah, we have a good, solid, like reliable public transportation system for sure.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about how to navigate the train system?
If you don't know how the train system works, honestly, just use your phone. It'll be easy enough. You can either use maps like Apple Maps or Google Maps. I guess Google Maps tends to be more accurate like across the board. I still use Apple Maps and it's like gets me places fine. But it'll tell you like what line to take, what bus number to take, and it's pretty easy and self-explanatory. I know it can be overwhelming if you like aren't used to trains, like because I didn't grow up taking trains in a city, so it was like a learning curve. I will say, like Chicago has all of the lines are different colors, so that should make it easier rather than like being numbered. And also, when you go to a train station on the wall where the train runs past, it'll show you all of the stops, so you can be like, okay, I do need to go that way because the stop I need is going that way. And
Okay.
Like
So
I
pretty
already
self-explanatory. That's good to know just 'cause I'm so not used to taking trains and, like, even in New York City, taking subways is, like, such
Yeah,
a confusing thing for me, and
yeah,
I
I
feel
get
like
it.
Chicago I feel like Chicago's a lot easier to navigate
I
because
will
you're above ground, so you
yeah,
can see where you're at, whereas,
for
like,
sure.
when you're in a dark subway, it's like, I have no idea where I am, I could be in a different city by now and not know it,
Yeah,
like, if you don't know what you're doing.
for sure. Also, Chicago people are nice. If you need to ask somebody for directions, people are friendly.
That's
Someone will help you
good.
out. You'll be fine.
That Midwest hospitality.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. During the wintertime, like, the train it doesn't really make a difference in how the train runs, right?
No, no, yeah.
Really
That's
nice.
one thing that I learned, like, coming from the South, because 'cause I'm originally from North Carolina, is that things don't shut down when it's, like, snowing and it's cold. Yeah, everything's still operating, like, full capacity. Again, I would say, like, sometimes the buses will be a little more late in the winter, but that's just been, like, my experience with it, but, yeah, everything's still running.
Yeah, because I can imagine that, like, if the roads are covered in snow, the traffic's gonna be horrendous, but if you can take the train instead,
Yeah.
seems like a way better option.
Yeah, for sure. You'll get places quicker taking the train sometimes, so definitely worth doing. I would just say, this will probably lead into another segment of the podcast, but the train and buses are definitely great to take. I think you should avoid taking the train at night, especially if you're by yourself, just for safety reasons, out of like an abundance of caution. And if you are wanting to take public transportation at night, I would recommend buses over trains. They just tend to feel a little bit safer. But yeah, during the day, you should be fine.
We'll definitely talk a little bit more about safety very shortly here, but definitely a very good tip. And I wanna talk about the airport a little bit too. Chicago O'Hare is a massive airport with so many different airlines coming in from so many different destinations, not just in the US, but internationally. So I think Chicago is one of those places you can really pretty easily get to, and hopefully for a decent fare as opposed to, some really remote, tiny little airport elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, O'Hare is huge, and also just because Chicago is such a big city, you can find, like, reasonably cheap, like, regional flights just into the city. There is a train that goes directly to O'Hare, it's the Blue Line, and whether you're coming from downtown and going to the airport or vice versa, you could just hop on the Blue Line and it'll take you either way, and it's really convenient and easy. And same with the other airport in Chicago. It's called Midway. It's on the south side. You can take the Orange Line directly to that airport. So there's easy access. Like wherever
Nice.
you're flying into, you can just get to the city.
Okay, so moving right along, I wanna get into food and drink. So what are some of the Chicago staples in the culinary realm?
Okay, so Chicago is a huge food town. Amazing restaurants all around the city. I would say like West Loop specifically is known as like the foodie neighborhood, like the Fulton Market District in West Loop. There's just a ton of like award-winning restaurants in that area. But as far as like Chicago staples go, obviously everybody knows of like deep dish pizza and I think Chicago dogs. If you want to try a deep dish, feel free. I don't think anyone's going to shame you if you don't. I honestly think with locals, it's kind of split where it's like, no, I actually don't like deep dish. Or like, there's also tavern style pizza in Chicago, which I think not as many people know. And tavern style is like, it has a thin crust. It's like a cracker crust. And I think a lot of people actually prefer tavern style over deep dish. Maybe I'm making a controversial statement here, but there you can try both. And if you want to try a deep dish, Pequod's Pizza is like the popular spot to go. It's a little more off the beaten path for tourists, but it's a local favorite. You can definitely go there for a good deep dish. And then like Lou Malnati's is a good place to go if there's locations all over the city, so you could find a deep dish there pretty easily. And then for like a Chicago dog, it's a specific type of like hot dog with certain toppings.
Since you are our Italy expert and you've had Italian pizza, of course,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on Italian, like, classic pizza versus a deep dish Chicago style pizza?
I mean,
Be real.
I like a classic Neapolitan style pizza. That's what I'll say about that. That's my preference. Or I really don't mind like a tavern style pizza in Chicago. But yeah, deep dish is
Yeah.
like a monster of a pizza. So
Yeah, it's a lot going on.
it's not for everybody, but
I think everyone should definitely try it though, because
yeah,
it is
try
super
it for
different.
sure if you haven't. It's like the Chicago thing that everybody knows. But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
but no one will hate you if you don't like it. It's fine.
And what about Chicago dogs? Like, I always hear about Chicago dogs. What makes a Chicago dog unique?
Basically, it's an all beef hot dog in a poppy seed bun. It's topped with yellow mustard, tomato, white onion, sweet pickle relish, pickled sport peppers, a spear of dill pickle, and celery salt. So that is what is on a Chicago
It's a busy
dog.
dog.
It's a busy dog. Yeah, there's a lot going on in there. You can get a Chicago dog at like Red Hot Ranch, or there's a place called Wiener Circle that apparently like the people working there are known for like yelling at you when you order a hot dog. It's like a thing.
Love it.
I don't eat beef, so maybe I'm not the best person to ask about a Chicago dog because I've had one actually because I don't eat beef. But those are the places that I always hear to go and get a Chicago dog. Yeah, and maybe
Yeah.
Wiener Circle's a good one if you want a full experience. So
And there's, like, stands on the street, right? Like, is that a
yeah.
thing?
Yeah, there's some
Okay.
stands around the street, especially in like I think if you're down in like Millennium Park and Grant Park, there are gonna be some places where you can get a Chicago dog, but there's places
Yeah,
all over the city.
love that. What about nightlife and, like, bars?
Yeah.
Are there some clubs or bars that you recommend in downtown area maybe?
So nightlife in Chicago, it really varies by neighborhood. Honestly, some neighborhoods will be dead and not have any nightlife, like Lincoln Park. But then some neighborhoods like have really great nightlife. I would say if you're near the Loop, River North tends to be like the place that has a lot of nightlife going on. It does tend to be a little more rowdier. It's more like clubs and lounges and that type of vibe, which isn't really my scene. But if you want to, go clubbing, River North is a good place for that. I would say some other areas, like for nightlife, I like Logan Square. It tends to be more like dive bars and just like cooler, more eccentric places. And yeah, I think it also tends to feel a little bit more safer going out in like Logan Square and like West Town versus River North. But it kind of depends on the vibe you're going for.
Well, that's a good segue into our next segment, which is safety in Chicago. Can you go over safety in the city?
Yeah, so obviously safety is a big concern, I think, when people are coming to Chicago, because Chicago has a not amazing safety reputation, especially like from people who have never been. I think they're like, oh my God, Chicago's like this horrible city. It's crime ridden. And like, I'll be honest as a local that there is crime. It's a major city. And I hear like of incidents like muggings and, robberies and carjackings and stuff like that. I don't think much of that is going to affect tourists. If you're staying, in downtown and doing the touristy things, you'll be fine. I would just say just have street smarts, like normal city street smarts, and you'll be fine. There are some things that you should be aware of when coming to the city. So there are quite a few homeless people in the city. And, like unfortunately, a lot of these individuals have mental health issues and want to be like sensitive to that, but also it is important to stay safe, and it's better to be safe than sorry. And while this might sound kind of insensitive, it's better to kind of like not engage with these people, especially like if you're on the train and like don't make eye contact. A lot of people might come up and ask for money, and it's best to just kind of say like, oh, sorry, I don't have any cash, and move on. I would say that's kind of the best way to approach that situation. But I think people coming from like the suburbs, that would probably like surprise them and they don't quite know how to deal with that. So I would just say don't engage. That's the best way to kind of deal with that. So yeah, being aware of the homeless population is one thing. If you do have a car and like maybe you're driving into the city, don't leave anything, valuable like open in the car. Just because car robberies, I think that's like one of the biggest crimes in Chicago is like car theft or people like breaking into cars. So just don't leave anything obvious sitting out and you should be fine. There's going to be some people like on the streets, whether it's like a homeless person or someone, doing canvassing for something. People will kind of just come up to you and be like, oh, I'd like to talk to you about blah, 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 or like asking you for money. It's totally fine to kind of just ignore it or be like, sorry, no, thank you, and just keep it moving. I honestly think that's the best way to go. I don't think pickpocketing is a huge thing. I mean, maybe some people have experienced that, but like I've always felt generally safe when it comes to that. Just like keep your bag like in front of you and on you. I don't think you need to do anything too crazy. I mean, if you're like not paying attention on the train and it's crowded, then yeah, I think some incidents can happen, but just kind of keep your wits about you. Keep your bag close to you if you're in a crowded area, but just general
Yeah.
stuff should keep you safe.
All great tips. Are there any specific areas you recommend avoiding entirely?
Yeah, I mean, there are some neighborhoods that obviously do just have like higher rates of crime. Off the top of my head, like Washington Park, Garfield Park, and Humboldt Park are areas I would generally avoid. Also, just being in the Loop at night. The Loop weirdly is kind of dead at night. And I would just, I don't know, it's kind of an eerie vibe. So I would just avoid being there at night like alone. So
Yeah. And you mentioned before that the trains you don't recommend.
just like
Yeah.
as a general rule, I think being on the train at night, I would say past around midnight-ish. Avoid it if you can, just because there will still be people on some trains, but sometimes it's a little more, some of the cars will be empty. And it's just a better idea to like Uber home if possible,
Yeah.
Uber back to your hotel or take a bus. Honestly, buses feel pretty safe throughout the day just because there's like a driver literally in the bus
So
for sure.
something to consider. What times do the trains run? Is it all the time?
Yeah, the trains run pretty much all the time. There's more of like a lag between like 2 to 4 AM, 2 to 5 AM in between
Okay.
there.
But
They
there
like,
isn't like a time they shut down, right?
yeah, I don't think they shut
Okay.
down, but they come less frequently in between like
Gotcha.
about 2 and 5 AM.
Are there any other tips people should know before visiting Chicago?
Yeah, so if you're coming to Chicago for the first time, some things you should know before you visit are, I would say, one, pack layers. Generally, like winter and summer are really consistent as far as like you're getting warm days or you're getting freezing days. But if you're visiting like spring, fall, kind of getting into either of those seasons, like pack layers. Also, it does like tend to sometimes get cooler at night, like in the summer. So like it's good to have a sweatshirt or something. And yeah, just I think layers are smart because sometimes you don't know how the weather's going to go. I would also say, going back to what I was just talking about with public transportation, people are nice in Chicago. Like, we're known for Midwestern hospitality. So, like, people are going to be snooty and mean. So, like, you can talk to, like, your server at the restaurant or, like, someone in a store. People will be friendly. If you're lost, someone will help you out. Don't worry about it. We're nice here. And then, yeah, just like safety, like I said, just try not to like engage, I think, when there are like homeless people on the train, just kind of keep to yourself. I feel like that's the best advice I can give. And then also, if you are trying to get into any popular restaurants, definitely make reservations ahead of time, especially some of the popular restaurants in West Loop. Like, just make your reservations before you come just to ensure that you're going to get in because they tend to book up. And, bring a reusable bag. It's a city. We have a small bag fee. So that'll save you a few bucks.
Oh, that's good
Yeah.
to know. Yeah.
Yeah. If you bring a reusable bag, and then also, like, a lot of restaurants will have extra service fees that I feel like restaurants in the suburbs don't always tend to have, or smaller towns. Like, so there will be some extra fees like on your receipt. So don't be like totally taken aback if you see something like that. And then I also mentioned this earlier, but this is a random pro tip. If you have to go to the bathroom and you're in downtown Chicago, go to the Cultural Center. Their bathrooms are free and clean, and you can just walk right in. So there's a
Oh,
pro
that's
tip
good to
for
know.
you. Yeah.
And you mentioned restaurants. Did you have some top restaurants that you
Yeah.
recommend in the
So I
city?
definitely have a bunch of restaurant recommendations for you. Some of my favorites are just ones I have to shout out. Girl on the Go is a big one. It like consistently ranks as one of Chicago's best restaurants. It's in the West Loop. Just really delicious food. It's like new American, which that's open to interpretation. But, they've got some different things from different cuisines. But one of my favorite things, Girl on the Goat, is the green beans, which I know sounds really random, but they have some type of sauce. I don't know. It's just really good. Just get the green beans. I've been a few times, and every time I go, I feel like I'm like drunk off the food when I leave. Yeah. Another really good restaurant to try would be, if you're wanting dumplings, go to QXY in Chinatown. I swear to God, they're the best dumplings in Chicago. They're so good. They don't take
Sounds so good.
reservations, but so you just have to walk in and put your name down. Usually the wait isn't more than like 30, 45 minutes, and you can just walk around Chinatown. But yeah, delicious dumplings. They're actually opening a second location in, I think, like Wicker Park. That's coming. But QXY, some other personal favorites are Sunda. I think it's called Sunda New Asian, but it's specifically the Fulton Market location in West Loop. Delicious. It's probably one of the best meals I've ever had in Chicago, honestly, is at Sunda. Go there. Everything's great. Specifically, the Brussels sprouts salad. Again, that sounds strange, but it's so good. Just trust me. And then some other favorites are like Bang Bang Pie is so good. Best pie. Tortello makes amazing pasta. Doma is really, really good. It's in like kind of a random spot in like Old Town-ish. And it's a cafe, and they make really, really good like pastries and dessert stuff, as well as just like some cafe food. So those are some of my favorites.
Recommendations sound amazing.
There's a ton of good places in Chicago. I'll take you
Yeah.
in some, Betty.
Oh, I can't wait. We're gonna do a food tour. And for listeners, if you want to do a deeper dive into all of these restaurant recommendations, Leah Rose has an article on travel living, which will, again, as usual, link in the show notes. So you can check all of that out after this episode. So we're coming to the end of the episode. Is there any Chicago etiquette that visitors should know before they go?
I would say, aside from knowing like what the loop is and the L, just, keep your wits about you. General city, like street smarts will take you a long way. And yeah, people are nice in Chicago. There's, I think, a really big like local pride in Chicago. Like, people love Chicago. And yeah, just, enjoy it. And it'll probably surprise you. Like, you'll probably end up liking it a lot more than you thought. I feel like almost every one of my friends who have visited me in Chicago have been like, "Oh, I just wasn't expecting it to be like all this." And they're like, "Chicago's amazing. I had no idea." So prepare to be pleasantly surprised. And yeah, just enjoy it. It's a great city. And I think it tends to be underrated. So just enjoy it.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Lea Rose, for being here and sharing your Chicago expertise. As I said before, listeners, we're going to link all of these relevant articles that Lea Rose has written at Travel Lemming in the show notes. So make sure if you want to do a deeper dive into all of these topics that we've covered today, things to do, places to stay, places to eat, how to get around, etc. We'll have all those linked below and make sure to check it out on Travel Lemming. And also make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with us on Thursdays when we post our new episodes. Thank you, listeners, for being here. We appreciate you so much, and we love getting to share all of these different places with you and talk about them on the show. Lea Rose, so lovely to have you here today. I hope you had fun.
Lovely to be here. Thanks for
Of
having me, Betty.
course. Yes, of course. We will see you next time on the Travel Loving Podcast.
Bye.